Very well indeed. What can I do for you?
Oh, gosh. Well, if I get too incandescent, you can turn me off, Mr. Sadiq.
Let it go. Let it all out. God, it's all Prince Harry-like. Release your inner devil.
Yeah, well, I follow a lot about what's going on in London politics because it means a lot to me. I'm an immigrant from Ireland since 1988.
Okay.
I've seen the bombings, seen the etc.
Yeah.
And since 2016, a city I absolutely love. I've enjoyed. I've done the walks, the museums, loved the culture, loved going down Brick Lane for bagels. It's a shambles. Yeah. You can't get into the city. It's expensive. You can't drive. You
can't get around it, can you?
You can't get in. You can't get around it. When I ask people locally, because I live in Twickenham, do you go into the city to museums, to theatre, to guys who are big into the music scene, and they go, no, we just stay locally.
Yeah.
Don't want to go to Ronnie Scott's. It's which some lament. And I look at the quality of life. One of your researchers even said it's a deterrent, and she's in her 20s.
It's really difficult because you have to really convince yourself that you want to go out nowadays.
Yes, you really do, but also it's the planning that you have to do. And he made this speech last night in the Mansion House, which. There's a guy in the Evening Standard who is so far up his derriere saying, "Oh, you got a warm applause." He's not there to talk about immigration.
No,
he's not there to talk about the health service. He's not there to talk about business. He's there. His primary role in looking at the Devolution Act regarding the mayors. For him, it's transport. Keeping London moving is the main criteria. And you spoke with Susan Hall, who I greatly admire for her sage views.
Yes,
is that she's when I see her on the Mayor's Question Time, or when I've gone to the fix that is called People's Question Time. He filibusts. He runs the clock down. He never answers.
He doesn't answer any questions. And it was Kevin O'Sullivan who said this morning, I've got to stop, Andrew, because we've got to go to the news. But listen, please call again, because there's lots we can talk about. This is a guy who wants to talk about anything, and I'm talking about Sadiq Khan here, other than the running and the problems that London is currently facing. He wants to talk about immigration, wants to talk about the EU, wants to talk about net zero, wants to talk about air pollution, doesn't ever want to talk about fixing London, the capital city of this great... But one of the big stories we've been covering here at TalkTV for some time has been the Sadiq Khan plan to roll out the ULEZ zone. That's the ultra-low emission zone, for those of you who don't know what ULEZ stands for. This is something that they wanted to do up in Manchester as well. Andy Burnham wants to push that through. He kind of put it on the back burner, if you'll pardon the expression. We don't know whether he'll bring it back in, but he probably will. There will be a congestion charge brought to many cities in this country. What we now know from London is that London is the most congested city in the entire world, thanks to Sadiq Khan's policies and Transport for London. But there is, it has to be said, some light at the end of the tunnel, because the Lib Dem group at Sutton Council, which happens to run the council, is continuing its fight against Sadiq Khan's ULEZ expansion because they're refusing to roll over, basically. They're refusing to give TfL, which is Transport for London, access to bring the scheme in to Sutton, which, it has to be said, is a very brave move. Let's talk now to Bobby Dean, who's the Lib Dem parliamentary spokesman across Shorton and Wallington. Bobby, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Can I just say I salute your stand here. There's an awful lot of people who were asked if they wanted this expansion to go ahead, and I think 80% or more said they did not. Meanwhile, Sadiq Khan thought it would be a good idea to charge people for driving around their own neighbourhood. Tell us why you've decided to take this stand.
Well, I think we need to be really clear that Liberal Democrats, care about the environment, and we want to see action to clean up our air. But when these measures are introduced, they need to be done fairly, and they need to make sure that those that are struggling are not hit the hardest. So when this idea was first proposed over a year ago, we were very clear about what we thought fair looked like. We said that there needed to be a proper scrappage scheme, one that would support all the families that are going to be struggling and the small businesses that would be struggling to change their vehicles. And at the moment, the proposal is only to help a few of those people that are on universal credit. That's not good enough. And we also said that we wanted to see investment in public transport in our borough. So Sutton doesn't have underground link, doesn't have tram link, it doesn't have the London Overground even. We're poorly served by public transport compared to boroughs that are currently in the ULEZ zone. And we said that that needs to be upgraded before we can see anything like this come to our borough. The mayor hasn't listened to us. He hasn't listened to the very reasonable objections from residents and local businesses. So we've decided to take a stand.
And is it possible legally for you to do it? I mean, I presume you've taken advice on that, because it may well be that if you succeed in this, there will be other boroughs similar to yours, which are on the outskirts of London, which don't have, as you say, the kind of public transport systems and networks that we have more in the centre of the city. And so it's unfair, really, on so many people.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, you don't know how these things are going to pan out until you go forward with them. We decided that we're going to take this decision to make a stand. The thing that we've specifically done is refuse to sign something called a Section 8 agreement, which is basically a cooperation agreement with TfL that will give them access to all of our roads. By not signing that agreement, we've shown that we're not willing to cooperate, and it also means that there'll be no Sutton Council taxpayers' money spent on this scheme. The mayor obviously has a certain degree of power, and he may try to overrule us on this, but we've got to do all we can in the meanwhile to stand up for our residents.
Yeah, because I understand one of the things that he wants to do is to install a load of cameras as well into places, because a lot of people's fears about this scheme is that it's not so much that it will capture that many people, because it won't capture everybody, because not everybody's got an older car. However, it might capture quite a lot of people inadvertently who end up getting fined bucket loads of money when they don't really deserve to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know about that point. The bit we're concerned about is making sure that residents who need support to change their cars get it, and that our residents have better public transport options as well going forward. The camera network, you know, is kind of secondary to this. That's his way he wants to implement the scheme. We're about the principle of this, and we need to make sure that people are treated fairly if he wants to go forward with measures like this.
Yes. I mean, one of the groups of people that I've been speaking to who are going to be quite adversely affected are carers, and people who are in the carer business, generally speaking, don't have an awful lot of money, but they do quite often tend to travel around in their own car to go from one place to another, looking after elderly people who need their care, and that will make it very difficult for them.
Yeah, I've heard stories of carers. I've heard stories of plumbers and window cleaners. All people are saying that they're not going to be able to go about earning their livelihoods if this charge is introduced. And obviously, they do have the option to try and sell their car, but it's going to be a very difficult market to try and sell a ULEZ non-compliant car into. And that's why the scrapper scheme needs to be there for a wider number of people than just those on universal credit, because there's more people out there that are struggling that need this support.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, listen, we give you our support, Bobby. Thanks very much indeed for putting up a stand, because it matters not, in a way, what it is that motivates people to take a stand against these kinds of authoritarian decisions. But it is important.